Saruman! Saruman! Is it more than an analogy? Let us consider. Consider this. I'm gonna propose an idea on how elements of the magnificently well-received books by J.R. Tolkien posthumously created into film. So, are these actualities in our psychic space? Indeed, I don't fully understand the whole landscape, but I feel I have something to offer in this debate. So, I'll be working off a few premises that I'd like you to understand. If you're a strict materialist, then you will not accept what I'm about to say, because it's contradictory to that. Understood? However, I still think you'll get something enlightening out of this if you listen. So let's carry forth. Ha! Ha! Do we have interiorities? Is there interiority? Is there a subjective nature to the human being? First, quick distinction. No, not distinction. Let's look at states of consciousness. The physicality of our being, if we think of it that way. There are different states, namely alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Just like going to a university. Like going to a university. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And likewise, we go through different states throughout the day. I'm waking now, I think, maybe, perhaps. You might be waking, perhaps. Are you waking? Are you in a waking state? I think you are. Maybe. Likewise, we also go through dreaming and deep sleep states. You know, if you do drugs, you go through other states. So you go through a wide variety of different state experiences throughout the day. You can consciously enact these different states to some extent by meditation, prayer, and the like, through drugs, also those sorts of things. I'm not advocating it, but that does put you in an altered state for sure. Now, I'm proposing that, indeed, these are different realities to some extent. I don't know if you agree, but that's what I'm proposing. That, although I don't agree entirely with the old traditions, I think that there is some truth in them. That, for example, by consciously entering into a dream state, you are consciously accessing a different way of looking at the reality in which you're living. Ha! Yes. So, for example, if you are lucid dreaming, that is, awareness in a dream state, and you see visions, your body, you have control of it, so you can expand it, you can contract it. There's a luminosity to the bodies typically. It's kind of a light body. Some traditions call this the subtle body, in that it is subtle. No, in that it is like kind of expansive and contracted. You have control of it. It's not, you know, physical like this body that we live in. It's more elusive. Right. So, Dr. Mark Gaffney proposes, for example, that there are three different bodies. Three different faces of God. Yes. There is the material God, much like the Spinozian God, that is, this universe of connected matter. So if you look at the God that way, it's just a matter God. And you see this in the great kind of holarchy. No, that's not right. You see this in the kind of great white web of life theorists that, you know, some of them have sort of a God, and it's kind of this big Gaia God. Okay, the second face of God. This is important stuff. I'm not taking this not serious. I don't know if you are, but I'm not. Second face of God is that light body God. When you enter into the dream state, you might experience, you might see, you might come up in front of that which is one must bend their knee in front of in awe and reverence. That is the great other. Now, you might think that's absurd, but let's come back to that. And then, like the Buddhists, there's the first face of God. That is where the self intersects with that which is all pervasive. So that which in you is sort of deeply connected to all things. This is like the great self. So what if the analogy that J.R. Tolkien posited is actually very real? Boom, boom, boom. No, it's yeah. What if those of power and control repress information about subtle and causal state? Causal being kind of that ultimate self that has no boundaries, that is ultimate, groundless, or the ground of all being, if you will. So they construe or intentionally lie about or create psychic barriers in the space. And so, in this collective space, this collective physical reality we're occupying presently in this waking state, that makes the lucid transition into a subtle body state very difficult. Because if you believe, if you are totally convinced in this reality, this is all there is. There is nothing greater than this physical body, that you don't have interiority, that you are not a psychic being. If you're convinced of that, it's very hard to transition into a psychic being state. Furthermore, when nobody else believes it around you and you still believe it, it's still difficult. Check it! So, the lucid transition into subtle relations with a god is nearly impossible in such a system, cutting only the god of the great web of life. That is all we can see. So the god in which one must bend their knee to because of its deep and ultimate reality and wonderful goodness, because it is good. This god cannot be seen. This god cannot be known very easily. Perhaps, I'm just positing this. I cannot say for certain myself. This is my belief.